had this project called Zombie Town, which is an R.L. Stine story. I literally thought it was going to be blood and gore.
Oh yeah.
So I said yes right away.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be blood and gore. But the next thing I know, it's for kids, right? And which is fine,
Yeah.
because I come from that genre anyway. So yeah, then I started talking to the producers. We started getting to the script. They gave me the script. I gave it to my co-writer. The two of us asked if we can rewrite it a bit. We did, just to get it more to there were budget constraints and things like that. But basically, that's how it happened.
I grew up on a lot of like R.L. Stine books and even the television show Goosebumps. And what I really enjoyed about Zombie Town was it felt like that same style of like a Goosebumps episode, but on a grander scale. Today on the show, we are joined with director and animation legend Peter Lepeniotis to talk about his brand new movie, Zombie Town. Zombie Town is a story created from the mind of R.L. Stine and features other legends such as Dan Akroyd and Chevy Chase. Around hearing how that all came to be, we take a deep dive into Peter's journey as an animator in the 90s, working on iconic films such as Casper, Toy Story, Shrek, Madagascar, and his own film Nutjob that led him down the path of directing features of his own. Peter is such a well of industry knowledge, and I felt like I could have talked to him forever in this one. But yeah, let's get right into it. Yeah, Peter, so great to meet you. I'm actually excited to talk to you today. Just kind of looking back in your history to beyond being a director, you've pretty much animated a lot of my childhood and beloved movies from Toy Story 2 and Casper and all that. And yeah, just basically, I kind of like really want to know how you started on that side of things and kind of transitioned into being a director as well.
Yeah. First off, thanks for letting me on your show.
Yeah, anytime.
Pleasure to be here. I like the green screen behind you.
Thank you. I'm sure you can do some wild stuff with that.
Yeah, for sure. I just see it as a canvas now. It's like who can we throw on there?
Yeah.
No, back in the day, like most kids my age, I was into like ILM and movies and stuff, right? Because the big thing was Star Wars and all the things that were going on in effects. And I got in 90. I went to school at Sheridan College. Jurassic Park came out in 93. A buddy and I went down to LA. We got the job at Boss Films, the guy with Richard Edlund who worked at ILM but made his own company and did this. It's going to turn into a long story, but basically, essentially, Animator. There weren't a lot of animators back then. I mean, the only schools. Are you in Canada, by the way?
I am.
Sean?
I'm in Toronto right now.
You're in Toronto. Okay, fantastic. You're next door. So yeah, back then there was only two schools to teach animation. It was Concordia in Montreal and Sheridan College in Toronto. So if you were, and I was trying to get into film at York, but my marks weren't good enough, but I could draw, so that got me into animation. And I thought to myself, that's film. And again, long story short, graduated in 93, and animation was starting to hit big because of Roger Rabbit and Little Mermaid. So got jobs right away in 93 and flew down to the States and then worked at ILM and then Disney feature animation, then Pixar.
Wow.
Then Mannix, and then came back to Toronto. And it was back in Toronto where I started going, I want to direct.
Cool.
That's basically in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's even like very interesting to me to hear about those times because right now, as you can see, I got the green screen behind me. I dabble in editing on the computer and everything, but I couldn't imagine like back then the type of technology and even trying to make these things on these slower computers because a lot of those movies you worked on like from the Caspers, the Toy Stories, they still hold up today. So just kind of wondering like how was like just render times or like even like the process of that? Would it take absolutely forever to do like a simple thing or
Yeah. As a matter of fact, on Casper, it was still film at the time. So you would do your shot, then you'd hand it to the guy doing the rendering, So there was another person who was a lighter. They would light it, but they would stay later than you would, and then they would send it off to a lab at night, and in the morning you'd see it in dailies. Like you'd actually sit in the theater
Whoa.
and see it projected on a huge screen.
Wow.
That was weird, but that's gone. I mean, that is
Yeah.
gone. That is completely gone. But at the time, it was they were doing it because there was no digital film at the time. So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. So I was thinking it was like what, like Revenge of the or sorry, Clones, Attack of the Clones that were the first digital film. So that's like 2003 or something, 2002.
Oh, really? That
So
later? Wow.
yeah, first digital film. So before that was all it was all celluloid, it was all film. So that slowed down the process, the transfer of digital to film. The render process was slow. I mean, these are good questions you're asking in terms of like just how long it took. But yeah, it took a long time. But the process doesn't change, right? I mean, the idea of animation, especially character animation, still requires the animator to think about the shot, talk with the director, find out what's required,
Hmm.
do all your homework and then execute, right?
Yeah.
So
That.
that hasn't changed. But
Yeah.
speed has. I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's so interesting for me to hear that you had to wait a day and then watch it in a theater to actually see it working. And I couldn't imagine the feeling if you did make a mistake on something. It's just like, oh, I gotta
Well,
go back.
again, just to clarify, I could see what I animated, but I didn't know what
Okay.
it would look like lit. You know what I mean? With the lighting on it, with the actor properly composed and composited properly, right? But before that, you don't know. I mean, your animation is working, but you're not 100% as to how it's all gonna work together. So yeah, you're right, but yeah, it wasn't as bad as like not knowing at all, like a live action or animation back in the day when they would shoot something and have to wait to they'd actually shoot it and wait at the lab to even see their animation. So that took
Hmm.
like in the 40s and 60s and 70s forever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I can imagine too all your experience over the years to actually like help so much in the directing aspect to almost like having this understanding of the capabilities of CGI over the years, and especially going into this movie that's actually coming out tomorrow, Zombie Town. Just can you let me know a little bit about like how that came to be? Because this is amazing. Like you're working on an R.L. Stine script, and there's Dan Akroyd, Chevy Chase. It's a big deal. So yeah, kind of how did this get into your hands, and how did this come to be?
well, like when I came back to Toronto, I did a short film called Surly Squirrel. It won a lot of awards. That bumped me up to like doing a feature film in animation uh, called The Nut Job, and it did quite well. That led me to another feature film, and when you're directing, it's like a lot of you have all these work moments, but a lot of dry moments where nothing's going on. And during the nothing's going on, my manager said, "Hey, would you ever do live action?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "Yeah, sure. I'll be on the lookout for it." And he knew a few guys who were in live action. They were looking for a director. They saw that I had done the nut job. And I think in terms of the industry, sometimes it's about how much money a project makes sometimes. So that put me on their list. They talked to me. We had the interview. They had this project called Zombie Town, which is an R.L. Stine story. I literally thought it was going to be blood and gore.
Oh yeah.
So I said yes right away.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be blood and gore. But the next thing I know, it's for kids, right? And
Mhm.
which is
Yeah.
fine because I come from that genre anyway. So yeah, then I started talking to the producers. We started getting to the script. They gave me the script. I gave it to my co-writer. The two of us asked if we can rewrite it a bit. We did, um, just to get it more to there were budget constraints and things like that. But basically, that's how it happened. It was the serendipitous moment of like having done the nut job thing and No Malone, which is on Netflix. Those kind of films gave me the cachet to do this small budget, you know, kids horror film, right?
Hmm.
So it's not. I mean, in terms of me as the director coming on and how that would happen, it's not that massive a risk, right?
Hmm.
As opposed to somebody, Anyway, that's the way I assume the money guys were looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super cool to hear. Actually just kind of my generation of consuming media, I grew up on a lot of like R.L. Stine books and even the television show Goosebumps. And what I
Hmm.
really enjoyed about Zombie Town was it felt like that same style of like a Goosebumps episode, but on a
Exactly.
grander scale. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was super
and I mean, I
cool.
wouldn't say huge grander scale. It was, it still has, there's a TV sensibility, but it's still trying to be a feature film. I mean, it's small, it's quaint, it's charming, right? It's not meant to be that huge blockbuster monstrosity, right, for teenagers. And it's
Mhm.
it's it's exactly what you said. It's like for the 12 to 11, 13-year old, if you're pushing it at 13, but it's a gateway film for little kids to see a zombie film with their parents and not have to worry about, you know, Dan O'Bannon type of Return of the Living Dead
Yeah,
stuff.
getting scarred for life, like
Yeah,
when I watched like
which
RoboCop at 5 years old or
you saw
something. It's
RoboCop you saw RoboCop at 5 years old?
it was on like a Fox afternoon movie, and for some reason it wasn't censored, and I just
Oh
it's
no.
it's like it's probably the reason why I grew up like a weird kid, just like my
Hey,
head's just,
similar story on
yeah.
my end. My parents took me at 5 years old to The Godfather.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I'm 5 years old. So
Yeah,
it's just as intense as RoboCop. I think the violence is just
yeah, yeah,
I was scarred.
yeah.
Scarred. Yeah.
Who knows how that shaped us and gave us like
It
weird
shaped
tics
us. Yeah,
throughout
it
life.
definitely shapes you.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Terrified.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah, and yeah, even cool even as I was like watching Zombie Town, like I was thinking too, like this is just such like a perfect like gateway for kids too. And I even
Yeah.
like from growing up with those Goosebumps episodes, I was watching it with that kind of hat on too. So even as an adult, I was totally enjoying it. And I know like a lot of people like around my age, their nostalgia for like all these old shows like Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark too. And I think if somebody around my age range showed it to their kids and they sat down and watched it too, they would enjoy it as well too, because there's so much greatness going on with like Dan Aykroyd and like Chevy Chase, and Dan Aykroyd's kind of like playing this Wes Craven parody type of deal going on too. So I kind of want to
Yeah.
know, were they always on board with this film or did they come in later?
Uh, well, I'll get to that. Let me tell you
Yeah,
really
yeah.
quick about the Wes Craven thing you just said. That's great. That's very insightful because my co-writer's a huge Wes Craven fan. He's a big horror guy. And that was his intent when when we were doing this. It was like we've got to make it like a Wes Craven kind of like guy. And I was like, that's fantastic. Anyway,
Hmm.
so Dan Aykroyd was was on a list of a bunch of actors we wanted to get, but Dan was my favorite, of course, as like anyone your generation, even mine, we love Dan. I mean, the guy is, especially when you consider he's even Canadian, it makes you crazy. Like he's
Hmm.
so good. Uh, when so we got this interview with him, and the producer John Gillespie took me along and said that it's going to be your job to try to sell him on this story to see if he wants to come on board because we went into his trailer. He was shooting for on a show and met with him for like 10 minutes. And I thought to myself, look, this is the most exciting thing for me. If he says no, I don't care. The fact that I was with him for like 10 minutes in his trailer
Yeah, that's
is
awesome.
enough. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm done. I don't need to worry about anything ever again. I go in there and I start pitching him and I tell him the story and he starts grinning from ear to ear. He loves this ghost stuff. He loves
Mm.
the paranormal. He loves any kind of interesting, uh, uh, you know, yeah, paranormal stuff. So it was interesting. And we gave him the Thomas Edison slant, and he just loved that. He just was, and then he was like, if you can help, if you could get my kids into a couple shots," he said, "let's do it." And we were like, "No problem. We can
Oh,
totally get your kids
cool.
in there." We started working out a schedule as to when he was available, and it was like we had him for a full 5 days. I shot with him, and it was surreal. It was surreal, but it was a lot of times I would forget I was even shooting with Dan because this live action thing is like a totally different way of directing your actors because
Hmm.
it's three-dimensional, it's real,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
tangible, as opposed to the actor. When I'm talking to them in animation, we have to imagine the world around us, and they're acting through their voice. Where in live action, it's it's three-dimensional, it's live, it's stage performance for the camera. Anyway, with Dan, I could concentrate on that, and him being a consummate professional. We had a lot of professionals on that movie as well, great actors. Henry Czerny was amazing, Scott Thompson, all those guys, um, and Bruce McCullough, and so yeah, a lot of fun working with Dan, a lot of fun, and again, professional, very professional. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super cool. And yeah, I feel like he knocked it out of the park. It like seemed like it wasn't something that he just phoned in. It's you could just
Mm-mm.
feel the love and heart into the character he was putting out on the screen and everything.
No, he cared. He cared. And I wish I wanted to give him more screen presence, and like I wish we had more time. The film was, you could see it's rushed, right? It's like there's not a lot of time to light it and shoot it well. And I was always like, oh man, this deserves so much more. But that's not anyone's fault. It's just the nature of the business. So I did the best I could with what I had with Dan, and I think it worked out okay. It
Yeah.
was all right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're being a little hard on yourself. Like I know like you're probably a perfectionist from seeing it on the editing side and everything and just being so deep into like
Yeah, I
the
can't help
animation.
it, Sean. I can't help it. Yeah.
But again, like just that R.L. Stine stamp on it too, right going in, I'm like, oh, I hope this is like an episode of Goosebumps. And it was like an hour and a half episode of Goosebumps with Dan Akroyd and some cool like zombies and like I one thing I loved you were probably like very hands-on with is was like the times when there was VFX and like I love the angle of the zombies of making it like a little PG and then instead of them biting somebody they kind of did that soul suck
Soul suck.
thing
Yeah.
that looked so cool as well.
Oh, thanks. I literally came up with that look. I said, just grab a blow dryer.
Yeah.
I just said, let's have the camera behind the person getting possessed or getting their soul sucked. Throw a lot of light at it. We never see it, but you think that something is happening because you have all that wind and hair flying
Yeah.
and light. So it was a lot of flash. Yeah, yeah. And it worked. It worked. The effect worked better than I thought.
Oh, nice.
But
Yeah.
that's because of like all the Spielbergian kind of like stuff I grew up on, and I just go, a lot of hair flying, poltergeist
Oh,
hair,
yeah, true.
light, it always
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, that really did remind me of Poltergeist now that you say that. Yeah, super, super cool. And
Yeah,
yeah, even like I loved just like as like an Easter egg for people watching this, they gotta stay a little bit into the credits. You get a cameo from R.L. Stine kind of like in a boardroom meeting. And
that's right.
even one thing that kind of connects to this interview series I do is you ended the film with Andy Kim's Rock Me Gently, and we just had him on probably a few
Oh my
months
God,
ago celebrating 50 years of Rock Me Gently. So it's kind of
that's
like
incredible.
how everything connects right now.
That is again, that's the producer John Gillespie chose that, and he
Mm.
played it for me and said, "Hey, how do you feel about this?" I go, "This is great." He was like, yes, this should definitely be in the movie. He was like, "Yes, awesome." So he was a fan of that, so he put that in there. So
Oh,
that's all the
cool.
credit to Gillespie. Yeah, yeah, the producer. Yeah,
Yeah, that's super awesome. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, as I got a couple more minutes with you too, just
Sure.
to kind of like let you know, a lot of people kind of gravitate to these segments and they're creative minds themselves, whether they're musicians or aspiring filmmakers. And I just kind of want to know if you had any like general advice for somebody stepping into the industry or has like this big idea they want to bring to life.
Yeah, yeah. We have a few minutes. I'll really quickly try to say that
Yeah, I know it's a big question
it's a big question.
to
It's a big
give to you with like
question,
1 minute left.
but I can make it simple. I can make it
Yeah,
very
yeah.
simple, Sean, because really what it comes down to is like if if what you're doing is something you're doing regardless of being paid, or fame or whatever, or like getting notoriety or whatever, if you're just doing it because you love doing it and that you'd be doing this no matter what, like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? If you're going to be making films and no one's watching them, it doesn't matter. The fact is, you still love making them. If that's the drive, then you're going to do well because if that's all there is, you can't help it. You can't help but sit there and constantly be thinking about it. You can't help but wanting to write a script. You can't help but wanting to draw pictures. You can't help but wanting to paint. You can't help but wanting to make music. If it's unavoidable and it's just the drive and it's just there, you're possessed by it because it's part of you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can say. If it's something you want, like I want to be famous or I want that, and I don't have the talent, I'm sure somebody can still get there. But as long as they know that it is honest and it has to come from a real place, then it'll happen. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say is like it is
Yeah.
actually there's almost no words for it. I'm sure you've experienced moments of
Yeah.
creativity where you're
It's
like,
more
I
like
don't
a
even know
feeling.
it's a feeling. Where did this come from? How did I even
Mm-hmm.
generate this? I don't even
Mm-hmm.
know how, because it's that creative ghost that's doing it. And all these things that happen to us. And I know I'm sounding like it's not it, and everyone has it. It's just a matter of how much are you possessed by it? How much are you driven by it? And how much are you literally going to do it for no other reason than but to please yourself?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can say. That is the most simplest way I can do it. I got two kids who are being creative right now as well, and I don't I don't say that to them as much, but I can see them by themselves. They're doing it because they can't help it. They want to do it. They're
Yeah.
just
Within.
inclined. It's
Yeah.
within. It's just you're driven to do it. It's not somebody telling you or you have to or you got to make money. I mean, at this point in my career, it's like, yes, I have to make money.
Mm-hmm.
But the beginning stages, which I think is alluding to your question, and I'm answering it, is that it should come through a natural source from
Mm-hmm.
within without you even wanting to control it or even know what it is. It's
Yeah.
it's nameless. I don't even know. It's weird. And some
Yeah.
days it's there and some days it isn't.
That's facts as well. But yeah, very true words. And yeah, I appreciate you kind of passing on that advice. And Peter, I feel like I could talk to you forever. Really,
Absolutely.
really appreciate your time and hope we can catch up again sometime soon around like another project or something.
That'd be great, Sean. I'd love to talk to you again on another project. Hopefully a horror film that's animated.
Yeah, yeah. And that's violent. That's what you
And
want.
very violent. We want to see blood.
That's the one that's within you that you want to do. So,
Yes, blood pumps.
okay.
Joking.
Yeah,
All right.
amazing, Peter. Have a great day. Eh? Take care.
All the best. Take care of yourself. All the
Yeah,
best.
cheers.
See you, Sean. Bye.
Hope you enjoyed that chat with Peter. Like we mentioned, Zombie Town drops on October the 25th, and it's a perfect family fun movie for the Halloween season. If you're checking out this interview the day it drops, I think this is the fastest turnaround I've ever done with one. Just as the movie's coming out tomorrow. Luckily, I don't use the same technology Peter used to make Casper in 1995. Still a lot of work, but happy to get this one in your ears. Also, the Patreon crew who always get these episodes early. I'm sorry I owe you one or two as we release this one immediately. And before I go, like always, I can't run away without thanking all you legends on the Patreon page. And first up, the biggest thanks to Mike Carniello of the Testing with Mike YouTube channel. If you're into technology, electronics, how they work, and most importantly, how to fix them, check out Testing with Mike on YouTube. Another big thanks to Amanda McKnight, who also has her very own fun YouTube channel. Amazing community, amazing vibes. Type in Amanda McKnight on YouTube to soak in comic books, video games, movies, and all things nerdy. That's Amanda McKnight on YouTube. Another big thanks to the wonderful Jenny Potter, the legend Devin McBride, back-to-back double impact Allens, the number one gent Alan Kent, and bigwig Alan Briggs. Another huge thanks to the queen, Ola Mazuka, Josh Davis, aka my homeboy Jay Dizzle, and last but not least, Francis Goffer, aka my mom. If you want a shout out at the end of every episode and also get these episodes early, raw, uncut, right when I'm done the Zoom call, I just post them. You can go to patreon.com/thecreativeimbalance, and beyond having my forever thanks, you can just go to bed at night and sleep soundly, knowing you're a badass motherfucker who supports raw, uncut, independent media. And nobody can take that away from you. You hear me? With that being said, we got a lot more around the corner. I bumped some episodes to get this one out early, so stay tuned next week and we'll catch you next time. Yeah.